Welcome to the big interview. I'm Alan Murray with the Wall Street Journal, and I'm here with Elon Musk, who is the CEO of Tesla, the electric car company, also of SpaceX,
Right.
which is going to colonize space at some point.
Well, we certainly look forward to taking people to space, absolutely.
And also the inspiration for Robert Downey Jr.'s Tony Stark character in the Iron Man movie.
Yes, in certain respects.
So we have a lot to talk about, but let's start with Tesla. You now have the Tesla Roadster on the road. I don't know how many of them are there out there.
I think we're around 16 or 1,700.
It's an all-electric car. I had the opportunity to ride in it. Amazing acceleration. It seems to go from 0 to 60 in about 3 seconds.
Right.
But it's not cheap. It's $110,000. That's not the answer to our energy problems.
No, it isn't. What the Roadster's greatest value is in breaking the misconceptions around electric cars, showing that you can have a fast, cool, beautiful electric car that goes long distances. And so the next step, of course...
How far does the Roadster go without a charge?
Almost 250 miles.
Wow. So that's longer than any other electric car on the road.
Yes, it's longer than any electric car in history. In fact, the Roadster has set many world records in terms of its range. In fact, we've had one customer take it over 300 miles on a trip.
Who was that customer, by the way?
There were actually two customers.
Yeah.
One was a rally in Australia. It's actually technically 500 kilometers. It's the first time that an electric car has finished that rally without recharging. And then another one was in Europe.
You have a lot of famous customers. George Clooney,
Right.
Larry Page
yes.
has one. Who you probably know most of the 1,500 customers.
Well, I certainly know several of them. But Larry Page and Sergey Brin were both early customers and, in fact, investors in Tesla.
Yeah. So, so how you were talking about how this is going to get us to the energy solutions. I mean, 1,500 people, very expensive cars is a small step.
Yes, the biggest impact of the Roadster is in changing the perception of what an electric car can be and showing that you can do amazing things with an electric car that, in fact, are better than gasoline cars in a lot of respects. The Roadster has better acceleration than almost any gasoline sports car. So the result of the Roadster was in fact the Volt. Bob Lutz at General Motors credits Tesla with the inspiration for the Volt.
Really? Did he work with you to learn your technology? To do you share your technology?
We do share our technology. Ironically, not with General Motors. Not that we weren't willing to do so, but General Motors wanted to go their own way. But we do provide our powertrain technology to Daimler, for Mercedes and Smart, and to Toyota. And so we have the electric Mercedes A-Class now on the roads in Europe. We have the electric Smart now in the US and Europe. And next year there'll be the electric Toyota RAV4.
So your technology is spreading to other car makers. Now you're going to have a somewhat more affordable car out next year?
Correct. Next year we will have the Model S, which is about half the price of the Roadster, so about $50,000. And that's a full-size sedan about the size of a 5 Series BMW. But actually far more capable than other premium sedans.
Will it accelerate as quickly as the Roadster does?
I think we will have a version that accelerates comparable to the Roadster, yes.
Really?
Yes. Which will be, our goal with the Model S is to have a performance version of the Model S that is the fastest sedan on the road.
Yeah. Are people surprised by that? I think most people think of electric cars, they think of golf carts, you know, sort of.
Right.
We
have one hell of a golf cart.
Yeah. Yeah.
Have you really want you go on the golf course with this puppy? I mean, you're really going to get some good time between the holes.
And do you find people are surprised that an electric car can do that?
They are, and that's exactly what we're trying to effect, which is to show people, hey, you can have a better experience with an electric car than you can with a gasoline car.
Yeah, so how much does the environmental impact of your cars depend on where the electricity is coming from? In other words, if you're drawing the electricity off of a coal-fired plant, is it still a good thing for the environment?
You know, it actually is. Even if you draw electricity from coal or natural gas or even directly from oil, because stationary power plants are so much more efficient than small gasoline engines in cars, an electric car actually ends up getting more range for a given amount of, say, coal or oil that's burned than than a gasoline car gets. So in other words, the CO2 per mile is actually less for an electric car, even if it's coming from a high CO2 source like coal. Now, of course, long term, we have to find sustainable power generation and sustainable transportation, but both sides of the equation need to be solved. And even if electric cars weren't there, we still need to get sustainable power generation. But the great thing about electric cars is you can generate the electricity from a wide range of renewable sources like hydro, geothermal, wind, solar, and nuclear where it's safe to do so.
You've gotten criticism, and probably more importantly, the government has gotten criticism for having made a substantial guaranteed loan to Tesla at a critical moment out of stimulus funds. It was like a $500 million. And what the critics say is, why in the world should taxpayer dollars be used to fund a $110,000 plaything for George Clooney and Larry Page?
Yes. Now, if that were true, it would be a valid criticism.
Okay, go ahead.
So first of all, I should say that the loan that Tesla received did not come from stimulus funds at all. In fact, the loan program under which Tesla competed for loans was actually created and signed into law by George Bush.
So it existed prior to stimulus.
It did.
But it's still taxpayer dollars.
It is taxpayer dollars. But it's very, very different from the stimulus funds or the bailouts or anything. In fact, one of the requirements under this loan program, which is called the Advanced Technology Vehicle Manufacturing Program, was that you had to demonstrate viability as a company independent of the loan. This is why General Motors and Chrysler didn't receive any funding under this program, because it's difficult to make that argument while you're going through bankruptcy.
But you say, so they were in bankruptcy. They couldn't make that argument. You weren't profitable at the time you got the loan.
No, but we could demonstrate viability with the Roadster.
Would you have had viability without the loan?
Yes.
So you didn't need the loan.
We did not need the loan. The loan was the value of the loan is really to accelerate the progress of Tesla, not to keep Tesla alive. Huh. Although unfortunately the timing was unfortunate. So it's fair that people would have a sort of a misunderstanding about this, because the announcement of the loan that Tesla got, and also Nissan and Ford got loans that were much larger than what Tesla got at the same time. But these loans were announced right around the time that there were bailouts taking place and there was a stimulus, and so people naturally confused the two, which is unfortunate. But they're really quite different.
And the other issue was that the loan was going to a very expensive plaything for the rich.
Correct, and that is also an incorrect perception. The loan that we received was specifically for the Model S program, which is much higher volume, lower cost.
What will the cost of a Model S be?
About $50,000. And
how many Model S's will you be? When does it launch?
We're expecting to go into production middle of next year.
Middle of next year.
20,000 units a year is the
20,000 a year. Yeah. Okay.
And a few other things that are noteworthy about the ATVM loan. Of course, we pay interest. It's a reduced interest, but we still pay interest. And if we don't pay the loan off early, then there are actually stock warrants that the government gets in Tesla. So it's a pretty good deal, and it's also senior debt.
Yeah, so, given the criticism you've gotten from our editorial page, among other places,
right.
Do you wish you had taken the money? If you didn't need the money, do you wish you had done it without the government loan?
We're really hell-bent on accelerating the advent of electric cars and getting electric cars to the mass market as soon as possible. So
$500 million helps.
It definitely helps, and we'll take a lot of heat if it's in support of the greater cause. And we did take a lot of heat. But I think in terms of the editorial page, the criticism that we received, I think was simply we didn't have an opportunity to correct some of the misperceptions. If Holman Jenkins or others had actually understood the correct situation, I don't think they would have been nearly as critical.
Did you talk to Holman Jenkins?
We exchanged some emails.
Okay. Okay. Well, I'm not going to go there. This is the news side of the organization. But let me ask you. You say your goal is to get electric vehicles to the mass market.
Yes.
Are we going to get electric vehicles to the mass market through a a startup entrepreneurial operation like Tesla, or are we going to get it there through Nissan, General Motors, Ford, et cetera, taking up the banner?
I think it's really going to come there through the whole industry moving towards electrification. I'm supportive of any move by any company to create electric vehicles. So I think it's great what Nissan is doing with the Leaf, what GM is doing with the Volt, what Daimler is doing with the electric Mercedes.
Do you consider them competition?
Well, I guess they're competition in a sense, but pretty indirectly. It's such a huge market that we don't see people necessarily choosing to buy a Volt or a Leaf rather than a Tesla. I guess technically competition, but not in a significant way. The overarching goal of Tesla is to get the industry to move towards electrification, competition or not, and whether we do that with our own cars, with cars that we help other people make, as we're doing with Daimler. We're producing battery packs and chargers for the Mercedes A-Class, for the electric smart car. With Toyota, we're producing the entire electric powertrain for the electric RAV4. We're just trying to move the industry towards electrification faster than it might otherwise go, and we're certainly quite pleased whenever there's any announcement about another manufacturer producing electric cars.
But there's clearly a strategy split among the big manufacturers. I mean, Nissan made this decision to produce an all-electric car. It hasn't sold terribly well. You talk to Ford, for instance. They'll say they think hybrids are the way to go. Do you have an opinion on who's right in that argument?
Well, I strongly believe that the future is pure electric cars.
Not hybrids.
Not hybrids. I think hybrids are an interim step. They're sort of like an amphibian. You know, it's when life was going from the oceans to land, there were probably a lot of amphibians. But that's not the end solution.
Yeah.
You know, I think you want to go all electric because that is the truly sustainable path. And I think if you split the baby and you have a car that is trying to be a good gasoline car and a good electric car, you end up being not as compelling as either a pure gasoline or pure electric.
The one other thing we should talk about that I think people get some anxiety about is the charging. If they need to charge their Tesla, where can they do it? How can they do it? And how long is it going to take?
Yeah. So with the Model S, I think we've got a great solution in that regard because you've got a range of up to 300 miles. You can actually charge the car in 45 minutes. The charger is built into the car. And the third thing is that you can actually swap out the battery pack faster than you can fill a gas tank. So you can actually swap the battery pack out in under a minute. Let
me ask you a little bit about SpaceX, space travel. I mean, I know you have rockets that are putting satellites up into space, but your stated goal is to get human beings up there,
yes,
even as the government is pulling out of the business of putting people in space. Why is that so important to you?
Well, I just think that a future where humanity is a spacefaring civilization out there exploring the stars is an incredibly exciting future and inspiring. And so that's what we're trying to help make happen. You know, I really want SpaceX to help make life multiplanetary. You know, I'd like to see a self-sustaining base on Mars.
Do you think that's really practical?
I think it's possible. Absolutely.
How long is it going to take? When are you going to put your first man into space?
Well, I think we'll probably put our first man in space in about 3 years.
And when are you going to put your first man on a planet? Man or woman?
Well, we're going all the way to Mars, I think. That's what,
time frame?
Best case 10 years, worst case 15 to 20 years.
And you're sort of on your own in this effort now. Are you going to build the colony as well when you get there?
Well, our goal is we want to be like the shipping company that brought people from Europe to America, or like the Union Pacific Railroad or something like that. You know, our goal is to facilitate and the transfer of people and cargo to other planets, and then it's going to be up to the people if they want to go.
I mentioned at the outset that you were the inspiration for the Robert Downey Jr. Tony Stark character. Did you work with him on that in Iron Man 2?
Well, he did interview me. I guess I met with Robert Downey Jr. Just before they were filming Iron Man 1. Gave him a tour of the rocket factory, showed him the electric car and everything. And And I guess, and we talked about some of the possible scientific explanations for the powers that Iron Man has in his suit. Like, maybe you can harness the power of dark energy or something like that.
What did you think of the character?
I thought it was cool.
Yeah.
I think there's also some important differences. I've got 5 kids.
Yeah.
Iron Man is sort of a swinging bachelor. I spend my weekends going to Disneyland. I was
a little bit
Tony
different.
Stark's doing that.
It's a little bit different. And you, before we leave, I should say, I mean, your personal life has been extraordinarily public. It has to be somewhat frustrating to you. I mean, I just this morning noticed that CNBC was rerunning their divorce special. Yes. Why is that?
They're rerunning that? I
Yes,
can't believe
it was. No, your ex-wife's face was on the screen right before I came in here. So.
That's horrendous.
But why has your personal life become such an extraordinarily public thing?
I don't know. I wish it wasn't.
Yeah.
I think my ex-wife is sort of she's a prolific blogger and writer, and I think she likes to talk about these things, and I don't. I decline to participate in divorce wars, enticing as that sounds.
All right. Well, we won't go any further with it here, but thank you very much for being with us on The Big Interview.
All right. Thanks.